Hello, Disney fans! This being Black History Month, I really wanted to celebrate that, and that's why I'm going to be talking about the Black Panther today. This movie was a huge deal when it came out. It was the first time a black superhero had been given a major leading role in a movie, that this was a franchise about them. You hear a lot of talk these days about how representation matters, and it's true. Try to imagine for a moment, I know that there's so much talk about this, but now try to imagine you grow up in a society where you don't see major heroes who look like you. You don't see yourself represented. You don't see your culture represented. That's got to be hard, and I can't even understand what that's like. And on that note, I want to say that I don't get what it's like to be African American, to be from a minority culture. I am proudly part Cherokee, but I don't look it. I don't face the prejudice in daily life that anyone of any minority faces, whether it be African American, Asian, whatever. So I can't understand what African Americans go through. I'm not saying that no white person has it hard. I'm saying the color of a white person's skin doesn't make their life harder yet. African Americans have that problem to deal with. So for them to find, so if I say something that is culturally insensitive, please know that I don't mean it to be that way, and it's simply out of ignorance on my part, because I can't understand that. And I wish that YouTube would let there be a comment section, so if I do say something that is accidentally insensitive or inaccurate, that I could be corrected on that. But YouTube's labeled my channel as a children's channel, so I can't get comments on my stuff. But if you have the chance to correct me on that ever, please do. I will not take offense. I'd rather learn than be offensive. But anyway, back to what I was saying. This was a huge deal for them to see themselves represented. And I'm going to be talking more about that towards the end of the video, but I want to get into the story. And the story starts out with a story being told from a father to his son. He tells the story about how a meteorite filled with a incredible material called vibranium struck the continent of Africa. Now a nation formed around that, the nation of Wakanda, and 5 tribes who inhabited that area were always warring until something incredible happened.
Tribes lived in constant war with each other until a warrior shaman received a vision from the Panther goddess Bust, who led him to the heart-shaped earth.
I have to say I find it interesting that the Wakandans worship the Panther goddess Bast. I always thought of Bast as an ancient Egyptian goddess, and she is. But then Egypt is on the continent of Africa, so it does make sense that they would share a common deity. And as anyone who has ever loved cats will tell you, cats are supposed to be worshipped, and cats know that. So it makes sense that they would worship Bast. And of course, Black Panther, Panther Goddess. The heart-shaped herb is where the Black Panther gets his power, a gift from a deity. This is incredibly important to their culture. And I'm going to try to talk a lot about Wakandan culture, but there's just so much to cover in this movie. Their culture, their technology, the plot line, the family relationships, and how all the characters fit together. There's a lot to talk about, so I'm going to get right into it. Now, the story is being told by a father to his son, and the reason the father knows that is because he is Wakandan. He is the younger brother of King T'Chaka. Now, this part of the story is in flashback. King T'Chaka comes to visit his brother, and he's got some bad news.
Ulysses Claw stole a quarter ton of vibranium from us and triggered the bomb at the border to escape.
King T'Chaka knows that Claw had to have had help from the inside to steal the vibranium, and he knows that help had to be his brother. I'm going to get back to why his brother did that, but for now we have to skip ahead to the current Black Panther, T'Challa. He's about to be crowned king, and after a side mission to retrieve his maybe not so ex-girlfriend Nakia, they arrive back at Wakanda, and I love the first view of it.
This never gets old.
Wakanda has incredible technology that even the most modern advancements that we know of don't even hold a candle to. They are incredibly advanced, and they give the credit to the vibranium, and there is no question that vibranium is something that is absolutely an amazing material. The Wakandans refer to it as the gift. It's a gift to them from the goddess Bast. But I have to say, I don't think the vibranium would have been as impressive without people who knew what to do with it, who figured out what to do with it. And one of those people, one of my favorite characters in this, is T'Challa's little sister.
Guys, my little sister came to see me off before our big day.
You wish. I'm here for the EMP beats. I've developed an update.
Update? No, it worked perfectly.
How many times do I have to teach you? Just because something works doesn't mean that it cannot be improved.
Shuri and T'Challa have a great relationship. They're always teasing each other constantly. They never stop. And yet you can tell how much they truly do love each other. It's great anytime you see any interaction between them. Shuri is, everybody loves T'Challa, but Shuri is smart. She has this energy to her. She's a great, I don't want to say counterpart. She's not his sidekick, but she's a great complementary character to T'Challa. And I really wish I had her gift of technology. If you wonder why my videos aren't updated very often, yeah, I suck at technology. But yeah. The characters in this movie are a huge part of what makes it so special, as it should be in any story. If you don't have good characters, you can have a great plot, but if you don't care what happens to the people in it, it doesn't matter. But T'Challa has to go through a ritual before he can become king, part of his coronation. Every one of the technically there are 5 tribes, but now I'm going to get back to the original story that was told in the beginning in a minute. The tribes were always warring until the first Black Panther united them, but the Jabari tribe didn't want to be a part of that. They retreated into the mountains. The way it's set up at first, I have to say I'm not familiar with comic books. I simply didn't grow up reading them. I read books, I watched TV and movies, but I never really read that many comic books. So I didn't really know the history of it, and when I first saw this movie, I thought it was setting it up for the Jabari to be the antagonist in the story. Not true. They do cause conflict, but they're not the villains. It's tradition that each of the tribes makes an appearance at the coronation, and they say anybody who wants to challenge for the throne, you can challenge. Victory comes if one of them either yields or is killed. It's a given that nobody's going to actually challenge. Each group steps forward and says, no, we're not going to challenge today, we're not going to challenge today, and on down the line. And I love that they have a blend of African cultures in here. I wish I had time to show as many clips as I would like to. But in the matter of dress, in the matter of body art, in the matter of weaponry, hairstyles, so many different things. They borrow from different African cultures to give Wakanda its own culture. And I like that. One thing that I think is truly sad about African American culture is a lot of their culture from their homeland was lost. And I can't imagine what it is to have your roots stolen that way. I'm huge into genealogy, and I love being able to trace my family back. And a lot of them can't do that. But anyway, I love to see all the different parts of Africa, all the different nations of Africa represented in Wakanda. Now, while they all step back and say we're not going to challenge, the leader of the Jabari does. Of course, T'Challa wins, but what's important about this fight is that the leader of the Jabari yields and realizes that T'Challa spared him. Not out of any, it wasn't that he didn't think that he could hold his own, but he realized that he lost the fight, and the leader of the Jabari did not quit out of fear. He quit because T'Challa reminded him, your people need you. Don't make me do this. Think of your people and live another day to help them, which he does. Now after this, T'Challa is taken and given the heart-shaped herb. His powers were stripped from him during the combat so it would be equal footing. It's the heart-shaped herb that gives the Black Panther their powers. And it also sends them to the land of the ancestors so they can speak with them and gain some wisdom. T'Challa sees his father and they have a conversation, and I think this is the most important part of that conversation.
So you need to surround yourself with people you trust. You're a good man with a good heart, and it's hard for a good man to be king.
That's such an intense thought that it's hard for a good man to be king. Yet at the same time, the only person you would want in charge would be a good man. Any leader, you want them to be good man, woman, king, president, whatever. You want them to be a good moral person. King T'Chaka knew what he meant by it's hard for a good man to be king because he's lived it. And one of those decisions that he made caused the greatest threat to Wakanda at the moment. Now we gotta change the scene to the British Museum where Eric Killmonger is looking at some African artifacts. He recognizes one of them as Wakandan, and he wants it.
Don't trip. I'm gonna take it off your hands for you.
These items aren't for sale.
How do you think your ancestors got these? You think they paid a fair price?
Eric Killmonger makes for a really interesting villain. He wouldn't have ended up on the path he was on if not for King T'Chaka's actions. Killmonger wants to, his goal is good. His goal is to help African Americans and other people of African descent who are oppressed, people who suffer because they are who they are, through no fault of their own, and who haven't done anything to deserve the treatment they get. He's sympathetic in some ways, but his methods and his extremism make him wrong. His willingness towards violence make him wrong. This adds a lot of layers to him being a good villain. He's someone that you want to fail, but at the same time, you cheer on his basic intention. And I'll get more into what shaped him later, but as for now, King T'Challa is working to set up his new reign. He's working on being a good king, and he gets some advice from Nakia.
What would you have Wakanda do about it?
Share what we have. We could provide aid and access to technology and refuge to those who need it. Other countries do it, we could do it better.
Even though Wakanda has technology, has incredible gifts that the rest of the world can only imagine, they've always kept isolated. They've always avoided the rest of the world. They posed as a third world country, and nobody knows the kind of gifts that they have. Every king has wanted to keep it that way to protect their secret. Nakia realizes this can't go on. And there's been a lot of talk about that through the years, you can tell, to whether or not they share what they have with the world. There's a saying, if you have more than others, build a longer table, not a wall. Now, King T'Challa isn't quite certain of what to do about that yet, but right now he's got another problem. When we first saw Killmonger, that was taking place stealing things from the British Museum. He felt that he had a right to those because they'd been stolen. Well, he was working with Claw, and now a lot of those things are going to be sold in Korea. Claw has been trouble for Wakanda for a long time. And T'Challa, Nakia, and one of the Royal Guard are going there to try to take him down. And when they go there, they meet a friend, Everett Ross.
Agent Ross,
Your Highness,
you are buying from Claw.
what I'm doing or not doing on behalf of the U.S. government is none of your concern.
Everett Ross is played by Martin Freeman, who I recognized right away from the Sherlock series. A lot of people know him from The Hobbit, but it was in the role of John Watson that I first saw him. He does a good job in here, and I have to say I'm impressed with his American accent. I know from trying to learn languages that accents can be hard to get the pronunciation right, to get the way you say the words correctly. And he does a good job of it. So kudos to him. Now, to say that they're friends is maybe a bit of a stretch, but they are on the same side. Claw is taken down temporarily, but he ends up being freed by Killmonger. Now, when he did that, T'Challa saw a chain around Killmonger's neck with a ring that could only have come from the Wakandan royal family. And he has some questions for his father's friend Zuri, especially about what happened to his uncle, to T'Challa's uncle. Turns out that his uncle had quite a life in America.
They had a child. A hatched. You saw there. Radicalized. Your uncle. I observed for as long as I.
T'Challa's uncle, Najobu, could not stand to see people who looked like him suffering when there was so much that he could do. Where he went wrong was he became radicalized. He was one of those people who had a good goal but went about it the wrong way. In the end, T'Chaka was forced to kill him. And where T'Chaka was wrong was Najobu had a son, and they left him behind. That son grew up to be Eric Killmonger. Killmonger was a nickname he took in the military. But now, he's going to be a major problem for Wakanda. He takes down Claw for them and shows up presenting Claw as a gift, you might say. And he wants the right to challenge T'Challa for the throne. And this time, T'Challa doesn't win. Being a superhero movie, you can guess from the beginning that T'Challa was not killed, that he survived somehow. You just don't know how. But they're not going to kill off a superhero in his own movie, so that was kind of a. I was intrigued to find out how he survived, but I wasn't actually afraid for him. Now, since T'Challa was apparently killed in ritual combat, under Wakandan law, Killmonger is now King of Wakanda. And while the remainder of the royal family tries to salvage things and flees temporarily to try to get help, Killmonger is going through the same ritual that T'Challa did. He's given the heart-shaped herb, buried, sent to the realm of the ancestors to have a vision with people who can advise him, his own father. And when he comes out of that, he realizes the heart-shaped herb is the key to any future kings.
Is all of it.
Yes. So when it comes time for another king, we will be ready.
Another king. Yeah, go ahead and burn all that.
For Killmonger to destroy the heart-shaped herb, that is a monstrosity against both the Wakandan political and spiritual system. This is where the Black Panther gets his power, and taking that is part of the ritual of becoming king. It's also their link to the realm of the ancestors. This is like saying there will never be another election in America. It's that huge of a deal. As well as saying that, religious services will be, that any type of religion will be forbidden. It's both spiritual and political, and that makes it just the ultimate crime on Wakandan tradition. Even though he supposedly is proud to be Wakandan, he's destroying a huge part of what Wakanda is. It's an attack on their culture. Luckily, some of the heart-shaped herb is able to be saved, and it's taken by the royal family, as well as Ross, to M'Baku, who is the leader of the Jabari tribe. Now remember, T'Challa spared M'Baku when M'Baku challenged him in ritual combat before. M'Baku realizes that he owed T'Challa that debt. And even though it seems like he's going to be a villain at the beginning, M'Baku turns out to be a pretty cool guy. He actually found T'Challa, who was still alive, and he packed him in snow to help keep him that way. When they find that out, they're able to give him the heart-shaped herb and restore him to life, to save him. It also sends him to the ancestral plane for one last talk with his father, where he confronts him about what happened.
Kuba, why didn't you bring the boy home? Why, Baba?
This had to be incredibly hard on T'Challa, to say that the father that he loved, that he idolized his whole life, was wrong. It can be so difficult to take a parent, a teacher, anyone that you grew up admiring, and realize they're human and they can make horrible mistakes, like leaving that boy behind. It's also been a mistake, and T'Challa realizes this, to keep Wakanda's gifts hidden all this time, to not help people with them. He's going to go back and correct that, but he's going to need a little bit of help. There are those who do agree with Killmonger's ideas, and there are those who will simply follow him because he is king, and they'll follow that no matter what. But the combat is not over. T'Challa's not dead, and he never yielded. He can easily go back and challenge. The help he's going to get is going to come, of course, from his sister, from Nakia, and he's going to get a little help from M'Baku too, but that's going to take a little bit before he joins him, although he does help in the final fight. He also gets help from Ross. I should explain why Ross is in Wakanda in the first place. He was shot protecting Nakia when Killmonger took Claw. In gratitude, they took him to Wakanda and they healed his wounds, and he's in on the secret now. He was also an ace pilot, and they're going to use his skills to help in the fight.
Flight.
What?
You were a great pilot. Don't worry, I'll guide you through it. It's just like riding a hoverbike.
Well, you guys have hover bikes?
That's such a great reaction. After everything he's seen there, hoverbikes surprise him? Really? I'd be surprised if they didn't have hoverbikes after all he's seen. There is so much that's visually amazing about Wakanda. and to see their technology in action is incredible. The fight scenes are visually interesting to watch too, but fight scenes take up a lot of the movie, and again, for time reasons, I'm not able to show all of the fight scenes. But there is one part of the fight scene between T'Challa and Killmonger, their final fight, that really stuck with me.
You want to see us become just like the people you hate so much. Divide and conquer the land as big.
Now, I learned from my enemies. Beat them at their own game.
You have become that.
T'Challa knows you can't become what you hate if you're going to do any good in the world. If you do, you're not solving anything. Of course, he does defeat Killmonger. He's the hero. You know how it's going to end. And it's also clear that he will work towards the goals that the right goals that Killmonger had, but he's going to do it the right way. And he ends up addressing the world, letting them know that he will share Wakanda's gifts.
All know the truth. More connects us than separates us. But in times of crisis, the wise build bridges, while the foolish build barriers.
That line just says it all about what kind of a great king T'Challa is going to be. The wise build bridges while the foolish build barriers. T'Challa is a leader, a hero that anyone can look up to. He's the first black superhero. This is an amazing deal. And he is an incredible role model, whatever culture, whatever race you belong to. But of course, there would be no T'Challa without Chadwick Boseman, and we tragically lost him to cancer. Now, I can't even begin to imagine what it was like to film all the incredibly athletic scenes that he had to do, to have the work schedule that acting involves, to do all of that while being treated for cancer. And he kept his struggle secret. He didn't tell people what he was going through. And so when he did succumb to the disease, it was a shock. No one expected this. And I didn't see the rumors going around myself, but I heard afterward that people have been saying online, oh yeah, he lost a lot of weight, he must be doing drugs or something, must be on crack. And they never gave a thought to what he was going through. It just shows how you can misjudge what's going on with somebody's life. They gave a lovely tribute to him on ABC when he passed, and I like what Robert Downey Jr., his co-star in the Avengers movies, said about him.
It was about 6-8 weeks ago. I reached out to him amidst the George Floyd protests, and he had such a thoughtful and kind of informative reframe for me as I was on a bit of a listening tour. And then I just go back and think, every time I think about, and Black Panther is hands down, it is the crowning achievement of the Marvel Universe. And I say that with all due respect to all the other films that have been made, including my own. But it was the one where people got to vote with their ticket sales and say, we require this overdue diversity. This is a meritocracy, or at least it should be. And this is a fantastic movie that has leveled the playing field, and appropriately so. And so his legacy is so meaningful. And at the same time, as I was noticing, and it's so great of you to do this, and ABC and Disney and Marvel to give this the space it deserves. There's a void now.
There is a void when there's a loss, like the loss of Chadwick Boseman. And the special that aired after his death, the tribute to him, addressed that not only was he a hero in the movie, he was a hero in real life. He went and he tried to lift the spirits of people suffering from cancer, especially children. And that took, he fought through his own struggle by helping others. And like I said, I can't imagine having to do all that he did while feeling as sick and tired as he had to have felt. That took a lot of determination, a lot of courage. And he embodied all that T'Challa embodies. And in T'Challa and in the movie Black Panther, there is a lot to be inspired by and a lot for people of color to take pride in, that they are represented, that African Americans are represented. Like I said, representation does matter, and this gives somebody that anybody can look up to. It's a truly special film, and if you haven't seen it already, I hope you give it the chance. I'm hoping this video gets published on time to celebrate Black History Month. At least it was finished in time. Hopefully, my technical difficulties will give me a break and let me publish this on time. But until next time, take care, everyone, and remember the magic.